what is going on in the real estate market. This is a question that we get from a lot of agents, a lot of consumers. It's been a little bit of misinformation. I've got some thoughts on it that I teased last week, but today's guest is Chris Jacob. We've had him on before. He's with All City Real Estate. He is a data and sales metrics guru. And before we introduce him, I just want to say, guys, if you like what you hear here, I would appreciate if you subscribe on either YouTube or any of the podcasts, which will have links below, but you're watching on video. If you want to leave a review, we'd love that. We've had some great guests on for the past 6 months. Would love for you to revisit those or visit those if you haven't before. So without further ado, we've got Chris Jacobs. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing really good today, Ryan. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, so it's been weird. Chris and I had a conversation last week, and it stemmed from the fact that, someone had told me that there was almost 10% sold listings in the MLS for the month of January. And you and I talked a little bit about this, and I've got some thoughts that kind of enlightened me after our talk. But before we get to that, what my thoughts are, tell us what's happening in the market with iBuyers, with everything you've seen.
So I think we talked last week, and you maybe peel that onion back and kind of really digest where we were at after one of the iBuyers was the largest brokerage firm in January in the Austin MSA. Kind of looked at it a little more in depth, and I was like, it can't be sustainable. It can't be sustainable. So I went back and I looked at starting January 1 of 2021 through about noon today. Where do these iBuyers participate? Where are they at? And one of the things I talked to you was, one of the things about it being sustainable is it needs to be listings. They've got to have their listings. They got to have their listings because anybody can drive all their sold data into 1 month, which is what my initial gut feeling was, is they wanted to be like, we're the largest firm in January of 2022. They wanted to lead in with that. One of the things I also noticed is, iBuyers represented 18.5% of the closed sales for the month of February. So I believe we're going to see one of the iBuyers be the largest real estate firm for the second month in a row.
Wow. In
the Austin MSA. But what stood out was, because I focus more on listings from a supply perspective, they've only listed 5% of the listings year to date. Mm-hmm. So it's not sustainable, even though they can capture 15% last month, 18% this month. They don't have the listing volume to sustain being the top firm in Austin.
And one thing I thought about our conversation last week was that, I would guess that, most of their biggest buying period probably starts in July or August and ends in December. And you pointed out that it's probably a data dump, not really a data dump, but I just remember last quarter, last year, people saying, well, look at all these listings from Open Door, look at how many, what the days on market are. And then as January got, ramped up, those properties sold. What do you say about that?
Right. I don't disagree with that. I really think there was, Q3, if you could look back and look at Q3 last year, we had Zillow and Open Door competing for market share. Mm-hmm. And what we had in Q4 was we saw Zillow bow out of the iBuyer program.
Yeah.
So I really think what we're starting to see is typically they acquire a home, they go do their typical make-ready carpet paints, freshen up the property. That takes them 45 to 90 days, depending on, I'm going to go with materials at this point.
Yeah.
And then it all hit in late Q4.
Yeah.
And they were the listing leaders. And it just happened to be one of the things I want to sit down and kind of focus on over the next few weeks is I want to look at sort of these rolling 12-month numbers and see where do they really play in to get rid of some of the seasonality. Because I really think it's just a blip on the charts.
Yeah.
I don't think it's sustainable. I've got a chart there if we can get it up on the screen.
Yeah,
which
Kelly,
really kind
of share that for us. Yeah.
So that first chart there, Ryan, the blue is the reported solds as a percentage of all transactions. And if we look at the 10 months prior to December, they were under 4%, right at
Hmm.
4% of the marketplace.
Hmm.
And then, like we talked about, Q4, they listed like crazy, and well, they're reaping those rewards of those late end of year listings, and they are going to be the sales leaders. But when we
Yeah.
go look at the gray line, which is our incoming new listings, Thanksgiving happened or Christmas happened, and voila, they're no longer the listing leader. And
Right.
orange line is their pending transactions. Their pending transactions are dropping.
Yeah.
So we're not going to see that sustainable, I think, in the long run. I think we'll see them pop up one quarter a year,
Yep. Yeah.
and it is what it is.
Right. And one thing, to be fair, one of the things that's not on here are the listings that they sell exclusively before they get on the market. Okay.
That's
So
correct.
yeah, here's what I would say for, this program is mainly geared towards real estate agents and educating real estate agents, but also consumers as well. Okay. In most cases, because of where these properties are located, I believe that in most cases, your best bet is not to sell to an iBuyer, right? Now, there have been cases before where they're willing to pay more, but I believe that they have slacked off of that. They did that for market share. They may do it every now and then, but like with us, with our own brokerage, we have a system to send these listings out to not just open door, but also offer pad. There's like 7 different iBuyers out there, right? And like we can really
Yep.
put them against each other. This is all before the house is listed, right? To see what the best option is for. So, if an iBuyer is the best option for a seller, we'll negotiate that for them. But as these guys have already become a household name, they become market share, right? They're not going to continue bleeding money. They have to make some money, right? And they may turn a small profit at some point, but it just doesn't make sense to spend that much money on market share when it's not sustainable, right? The shareholders won't allow that. So I guess my point behind this is if you're a consumer, talk to your real estate agent and ask them if they have a solution to determine if your home is a fit for it. Because with our solution, it's not just open door. Like we compared a property and there were like 2 other iBuyers that were doing higher. But in most cases, what we'll do is we'll give them a CMA, okay? And we give them comparative market analysis on a price that we agree on, and then say, you know what? While we're getting the house ready, let's test the market, right? And you know as well as I do, Chris, is that this is very geographical. Talk to me about that for a second.
Yeah, so the geographical is very, we talked about this earlier last week. They don't compete in the market I'm in. I live in central Austin. Most of my owner occupied stuff is north of the water, south of 183. There's a handful of open door listings, but when you go out into the suburbs like Cedar Park, there are neighborhoods where a quarter to half the listings are an open door neighborhood. So they really have taken a liking to repeatable events. So they love subdivisions that are mass produced because it's predictable. We know what the market is. They know what the known issues are, and they can go in and be very competitive in those instances. But in central Austin, like your neighborhood in Zilker, they can't compete.
No.
There's just not enough meat on the bones for that. It's an all factor in our markets. But when we get out into these suburbs where there's mass produced tract homes, their analytics are very effective in kind of targeting and doing those things.
Yeah. Another thing that I want to talk about is in regard with inventory is, obviously this year is pretty hot. Inventory is limited, but there's a lot to be blamed on coronavirus from December. We had a new variant again where we thought we were going to level out. Okay. Turns out the new variant wasn't nearly as deadly as the last one, but that put a kink into stuff, right? And so do you start seeing now, do you see now more listings coming up, and are you foreseeing more in the next 3 months?
So, I think we've seen some slowdown in listing speeds. We've got a good, healthy supply right now of resale homes. Builders are really good at getting new supply to the marketplace. But when we start looking at year-to-date numbers, we're still trailing 1-2% on new listings. And we're seeing
we have less new listings from last year.
Yes, sir. For year to date,
Wow.
we're down about 1 to 2% on any given day right now. And
Mhm.
when we consider last year, we had just come out of the deep freeze. I had
Yeah.
hoped those numbers would have gone up.
Yeah.
We would have seen that kind of shift, and it just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Markets inventory is really kind of slow to come to the market.
Mhm.
Um, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out over the
Well, and I
next.
think, yeah, I mean, I think the whole Delta, look, like, I mean, people, a lot of us don't care about, you know, coronavirus. I mean, I'm not making light of it, but I'm double vaxxed, double virus. Okay. I don't care. Okay. I'm
Yeah,
feeling pretty good about it. But I do believe that that was a factor for a lot of people that were planning in December, January, February. Right now, the headlines are saying, you know what, we think this is over with. 73% immunity. And I don't want to get into the politics of the virus, but at my point, that has to have had an effect.
yeah. And one of the surprises that really surprised me, to kind of pivot a little bit on your conversation, is investor purchases of homes have gone up over 50% with the coronavirus.
Yeah,
So historically, investors have been buying, forget the iBuyers.
sure.
Historically, investors have been buying 20% of all homes sold in the MSA for the last decade, from 2010 up until 2020. And
Mm-hmm.
with that shift, we saw that shift. They're now 33% of
Okay.
homes sold are going to investors. And what was really surprising, to kind of follow up on that open door, is we're seeing institutional investors invest in Austin, which they had not historically done. They had focused on markets like Phoenix and
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta and areas like that. We're seeing institutional buyers being 10% of the buyers now in the market.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's crazy what the virus has done to the market in terms of supply, consumers,
Yeah. Well,
and
and
where
with the
it's
investors and the institutional buyers, what that shows me is a sign of investor confidence, right? Because
absolutely.
I mean, you look at everything, and people ask me all the time, when is the market going to stop? When's it going to stop? The market stop? The headlines are when the headlines stop, that's when it'll slow down. Okay.
That's right.
You know,
That's right. I remind
six
everybody.
hundred. Yeah, 600,000 square foot to Facebook, 2 floors at TikTok. Like this is all in the last 3 weeks. Okay. And I'm not,
Exactly. Exactly.
so
Well, I tell everybody that, just look at what's going on in the I-35 corridor. There's over $20 billion in capital projects for
yeah,
jobs. And that doesn't
yeah,
even include downtown. That doesn't include our normal tech corridor of 183.
right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
The,
And of the
the
top 10 markets in the US, we're still in the affordable range,
yeah, we are.
you
That's
know?
what's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry about that. We could chat all day long on this stuff.
Sure, sure. So what else do you see as far as trends compared from last year, this year? What's noteworthy to you? I know you look at this stuff daily and I always follow your stuff. By
Yeah.
the way, while we're at the beginning of this, where can people find you online? Because I usually wait till the end, but you have such good
Yeah.
information.
Well, no, I run the housing report. We're a little Facebook group. I publish a couple updates each week on where the marketplace is, and
Mhm.
got lots of neat little tidbits. And I try to keep the group apprised of what's really happening in the Austin real estate market in near real time,
Okay.
as real time as we can get.
Yep.
If we look at that third slide that I sent over to you, the rolling new 30-day new units versus pending units.
Okay,
Um,
Kelly. Okay, here we go.
okay, so
All right.
this is kind of weird because I knew you wanted to know what this year is going to look like versus last year.
Mhm.
So last year we were in this weird situation. So keep in mind, this chart goes back to 2020, and it's a lot of old gobbledygook. But the key is the orange line. The orange line is demand.
Mhm.
So the big dip in 2020 was COVID landed and the world shut down.
Mhm.
And then when they started opening up the markets at the end of May, early June, when the credit markets got really laxed in printing
Mhm.
money, demand went through the roof. So that inversion that we saw back in June
June of
continued through
2020. Okay, yeah.
June
Okay.
of 2020, continued until March of 2021, and set us up for a pickle of a year for 2021 because we had been on a 9 months or 7 month slide, 8 month slide of consuming more inventory than we had. And it wasn't until March of 2021 that supply caught up to demand.
Yeah.
But that 9 month period really caused us to see appreciation as high as 39% in Williamson County, 30% in Travis County, 35% in Hayes County. And this year, what's nice is that inversion reoccurred for us in October, which was about 2 months earlier than it normally would occur in the fall. And I'm hoping we see in March that our supply catches up with our demand. So I'm really thinking that we're going to see double-digit growth again this year, Ryan. I've told my investor pool that I advise on that we're looking at probably a 20 to 25% year based on kind of the way we've started this year. But if we can't get the supply to come to market, you know, we easily could be back at another 30% year.
Right.
And I mean,
right.
It's a very fine line that we're walking. Because this was as of this morning, we were running a 10% deficit on new listings to pending listings. Yeah. And the closer we get to zero delta, the better it's going to be for us.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed, like looking at this this graph here, is you still have your pending starts going down in 21 a little bit.
There's a little hiccup. So
yeah.
Well, we had a deep freeze last week, which really kind of slowed the market a little bit. And I'm just going to be honest, agents are notoriously slow reporting pending datas. Yeah. So it'll be 2-3 weeks and that number will pivot back upwards. Yeah. It's just when we start looking at it in real time, it always shows it downward. The only accurate number in real time is new listings.
Well, and I can tell you from like our own internal, like we share, you know, news about new listings and, you know, new builds and all that. And you see it on some of these Facebook groups. What we saw last year was before June of last year, I think about when it was, you'd start seeing agents, you know, saying, oh, well, such and such new build is now, you know, they're going down, they're only paying 1% or they're paying 0%, they're changing the prices. And then towards the end of last year, we started getting news that, okay, you know what, maybe they're paying a little bit more, they're giving more incentives again. And I think what the end of last year taught us, or really taught the new builders, you know, new home builders, is like, you know what, let's maybe not be so chinchy with the agents and cut them out just yet, because, you know, there is going to be seasonality in this market like there is every time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, you know, right now, I mean, when we talk about new builds, I think, when was it last time you and I talked about this? Was it months ago? But I think you had said that there was 65% of pending home sales was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So new builds it's crazy. So new builds right now, we've got, and this was as of this morning, 5,890 some pending sales. And 65% of those sales pending are new builds.
That's insane.
That's insane. Yeah. And what's even more crazy is the days under contract, which nobody tracks, and I kind of track because I wanted to see transaction velocity.
Yeah.
The average new build is under contract for like 130 days right now.
Well, right.
Because they can't deliver the inventory because of the supply chain issues.
Exactly. Yeah. And so because they're not listing every new build, they're listing one new build. Correct. Right. And so those days on market, I think you probably agree with me that those are artificial days on market, right?
Yeah, new build stuff. I've actually gone through and I've tossed all new build from my analytics that I'm sharing with the public, because they started to really skew the data because of the troubles in new builds, just getting product to consumers. Mm-hmm. And what really surprised me, Ryan, I went and pulled all the building permits for the MSA. So our builders are only putting about 1 in 3 transactions in the MLS compared to what they were doing in the past, of where it being 2 in 3 were put into the MLS. So they're listing less. It's taking longer to deliver.
Yeah.
And we're you know, it's there's a pickle to work through.
Yeah.
But last year when we had the building permits and our resales, there were 55,000 transactions total.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is just astronomical numbers.
That's crazy. Well, you know, another thing that has come up to me in my brokerage, where agents call and like, you know, the builders now renegotiated a deal. Okay, we hear this all the time, because it's been under contract for 6 months, and they want to raise the price 50,000, sometimes more, right? But let's just say it's 50,000, and my agent's like, what do I tell them to do? And my advice to them is like, there's nothing you can do. All right, look at the price that they're paying. If your people can pay 50,000 more, it's still a deal. Okay.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
you know, you can go to another new build, and then, you know, hopefully that will be that'll be another 6 months. You'll probably pay more for that price, and then they might jump that price up as more.
That's right. I do a little bit of commercial, and we're working on some build to suit quotes. And one of the things we've gone from 2 years ago, a build to suit would just be like, here's the price. Those contracts are moving to an indexed contract, where the final price isn't going to be determined until we deliver the product, because it takes 13 to 20 months to deliver the product.
Yeah.
And they don't want to lock themselves into a number.
Right, because that price per square foot to build the interior of it is going to go up.
Absolutely. Air conditioners, like commercial, we got one that's right next door to the one we own. The air conditioners were due last October, and they just got them last week. And it's just like,
and so, like, I'm kind of mixed on the business practice. I'm not mixed on the business practice. I'm kind of, you know, the builders in general, a lot of them do some what I consider shady stuff. Okay. However, I do understand their pain points in the fact that, you know, they're raising the price because supply chain's taking longer, and they're making more money. But if you look at it from, you know, the standpoint of a spec builder, we have one in our office that, like, he did a spec home, and it was supposed to close in, I'm giving an example, not going to give me specifics of it, but, like, you know, got under contract for, I think, 2.7. Okay. Very early on, and it took another 5 months. Well, in that 5 months, you could have gotten 3.2, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a spec builder, what my advice is that, you know, you want to list on, you know, one of these private networks or whatever, you know, exclusive listing, whatever you want to call it, okay, for a price that is much higher than you think you'll get. Okay, because if it takes so long, then what it would actually list and sell for by the time it's actually ready may surprise you.
Yep.
And when you have these new builders, they're just like, I mean, the reason I'm not, you know, saying that they should, I'm not, you know, justifying their business practices, is because they do a lot of different business practices that are questionable, right? Like you know, you know, killing the contract and restarting it, okay, which is like a loophole in the contract to me, or, you know, cutting the commission down to nothing, where, you know, we might have searched, you know, 50 different new builds and to find them that one. So, you know, but I do understand part of it. It's just, you know, how do you justify the whole of it, you know?
Well, you know, you talk about that, the market and the delay in delivering product. So right now in Austin, and I just lost an earbud, so give me 1 second here.
Sure.
In Austin, here's what's crazy. We already know what homes are going to close for at the end of March, based on the analytics I have and the data set. So I'm sitting here, I just opened the file up. So the average closing for the end of January, which are the last published notes from ABOR, for a resale home, not new build, was 500 and the resales were $585,000.
Okay.
By the end of March of this year, the average resales could be $647,000.
Wow.
My forecast accuracy is 100.08% on my stuff, and my standard deviation is 2.4. So I got a little bit of play in there, but nothing crazy. But right now, the current pendings or current sold closed on Friday was 607. So there's a $40,000 play in values that's going to hit the books by the end of March.
Now, is that just Austin city limits?
5-county area, the MSA.
5-county area. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sitting here looking at going, all right, man, if you're not right personally with my, you know, with the offers we wrote last week, I just kind of looked at this going, if we're not writing them for 5% more,
yeah,
we're already missing the curve.
Yeah.
Because if it's priced right, yeah.
So
there's a 5% moving pricing.
Do you have any data, and I'm putting you on a spot here, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but do you have any data about cash buyer status, or, you know, what percentage is cash buyer?
So, that's a great question. Up until a few years ago, it used to be a mandatory field on our MLS that we would state how much they put for cash down, how much they financed, if it was a
Mhm.
VA, if it was all that. When they took that data out of our MLS, it
Yeah,
got really, really hard to track.
yeah.
So Core Logic kind of plays with it with their analytics, and
Mhm.
they go in and look at deed of trust and things like that. And I think the general accepted um, numbers about 35% are cash
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
buyers,
Yeah.
which is still
And
pretty astronomical.
well, and that there's I think there's factors that play to that that aren't exactly accurate, right? Like what we have Homeward, we've got Home
Yep.
Light, for our brokerage, we want all the options on the table for our agents. Okay.
Hmm.
And we have relationships with lenders, but that I love and that they are the best ever. But I also let our agents know is like you need to have tools in there for people that can qualify. And for those that may not know what we're talking about, you can get an institution, a lending institution that will write an offer for you, and it costs, depending on how much you use it, may cost 1%, maybe the rent on it. But the way that they win is that they are able not just to win on the minimal amounts of percentage of rent that they pay while they own the home, but they also usually get the loan on the new home, right? So in other words, they may
Yep.
pay for it with cash, okay? And instead of closing in 30 days, the offer makes it so that you close in 2 weeks, and then you pay for, however that time between those 2 weeks that you close on it to finish the other loan, right? So I'm
Right.
just explaining this broadly, okay? But, I think this needs to be a real consideration for people that are in parts of the market that is really competitive, you
Absolutely.
know?
I think that cash buyer program that is offered out there by Homeward, and it's tremendous. I've got a VA buyer that I started that dialogue last week, going, maybe we need to go pick up the phone with Homeward, make
Yeah,
you a cash buyer, pay that 2-3 points,
yeah,
and become more competitive with your offers, because these VA guys are buying 100% finance, and those offers are. I feel for the veterans trying to stand
yeah.
out.
Well, I do too. And then the other thing is like, people that are shopping on that type of stuff, the same thing when I deal with an agent, it's kind of like an agent comes over to our brokerage. We are not free. Okay. You can go get better splits everywhere else. Okay. But if you look at the numbers of where our agents go from one year to the next, you do the math. Same thing with
Right.
this. If you pay 2% for a property to go in for 2 weeks, and you're like, wow, I don't, you haven't owned for 2 weeks, whether, and you're like, oh, I don't want to pay that. We'll do the math of the appreciation in the next 3 months, and it covers that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you look at even the 5 points that's going to move in the next 30 days, 35
Yeah.
days, if it
Right.
costs you 2 points or 3 points to get it carried through, and there's a 5 point spread already, you're 2 points ahead.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I kind of look at it going, all right, I really think these cash buyers are going to start, these cash buying services are really going to make buyers more competitive that otherwise could not compete in the marketplace.
Absolutely. And I know people, I was saying this a year ago to some of my friends in the industry that are in the lending industry that didn't have this. I'm like, you need to figure out a program for this, because if you don't, you're going to get disrupted. What are you seeing in luxury property sales in Austin? Do you have any data on that?
I track that, and I kind of quit tracking it, to be honest. It got
Yeah.
so where it was just becoming homogenized with the lower tiers.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And
it's still competitive. It's still multi offers. It's
yeah.
still
And then you also now you have to define what's luxury and what's not. It's like
yeah.
it used to be $1 million up. Now maybe it's 2 million,
I would even argue in Central Austin, it's probably 3 and up,
Yeah. Right.
because there's a lot of $1 to $2 million homes in Zillow. You're just looking at it going, that's all dirt.
Yeah.
I'm in Brentwood, and they're paying $800,000 to tear a home down. And I'm like, No, you know, even the homes that are 1.5 million, they're not special homes for 1.5 million. I'm
No.
not trying to complain to anybody.
Yeah.
It's mind boggling.
So my house was built in 1972. This is pretty interesting. Okay. And you know, I've had people, what do you think your house is worth? Well, like this moves every month, but I think that my land is probably worth 1.6. Okay.
Yeah.
With my home, maybe 150,000 more. Okay. Because, and I've got a nice home, but it's a box, it's a track home, you know, they don't have cathedral ceilings or whatever. You know, if I were going to move to like Costa Rica and live out the rest of my days, I wouldn't sell my home. I'd tear it down and I build, you know, I have 2,200 square feet in my home. I'd tear it down, I'd build, you know, 3,600 square feet. I just don't need that right now.
Right. I'm that way in Central Austin. I'm in 2,300 square feet, built in 1958 with a 2-car garage.
Yeah.
And my wife's hilarious because my lender's got her on a drip, the Switcher Homes worth.
Yeah.
You know, Eric Bramlett sends me a letter I like Eric a lot for the record.
Yeah.
Eric sends me a postcard every 3 weeks. John Durham sends me postcards, and my wife loves comparing everybody's opinion on the value of the home. And then she pings me in and she's like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't work where I live.
Yeah.
I don't need that stress in my house."
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
it's a beautiful house. I like where we live, but honestly, someone's just going to buy it and tear it down. You know, I purely know that it's all dirt value in my home. It's a beautiful house for what I live in, but
well, and
not.
so yeah, and so speaking to real estate agents here is, you know, these developers are going out and they're trying to get listings. Okay, they're trying to get homes before their listings. Okay, so how do you position yourself to be the person for that? And here's how you do it. Right, you need to have a solution to the seller that says, you know, yeah, you could call ABC Builder and they'll offer you something, right? But here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna call the 5 builders that are continually building here right now. And I've done this. I did this last year. I did it on behalf of one of my agents, and we created a bidding war where, you know, we started with a house in my neighborhood at like I forget what it was, 1.3 is like for 1,600 square foot home. And we got them to like 155. Well, they wouldn't have gotten that going straight to the builder without me. Okay. Right. And so what I'm trying to help our agents, really any agent, to do is what's your differentiated value so that we can compete against these developers that are going to try and buy the home without a realtor, right?
Yep.
And the way to do that is you have the connections, because they'll still buy it with a realtor, especially if they know there's somebody else that's going to buy it. And if you're working, if someone is thinking about doing selling to Open Door or any of these other iBuyers, you need to have the contacts for all 7 of these people, like, and be able to really, and this isn't just like a okay, this is a bait and switch thing where I'm going to tell you I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do it. No, you need to have a system for that so you can be relevant, right? Because right now we're all competing for listings more than we ever have in our entire life. All right.
That's right.
So anything else you see on the market that noteworthy that we should talk about?
Pray for more listings.
Pray for more listings. Yeah.
We need more inventory. I think the you know, with the tremendous job growth that we're having in Central Texas always being in the top 5 places of where you need to be in the world. The corporate reloads of all the headquarters landing in Austin and Texas. You know, what we're experiencing in Austin is not unique to our market. You know, San Antonio is struggling with the same issues. Houston's struggling with the same issues. Dallas is struggling with the same issues. Austin just happens to be exponentially worse. You know, when Houston's got 21 days inventory, we have 8. We get up to 15 days inventory, Houston's got about 30. It's still a really tight market, and they're still moving just as fast as we are, and our lines are a little different because our base rates are all different. But right now, the whole state of Texas needs more inventory.
That's right.
And you know, the one thing we need is we need more houses on the ground.
That's right. And so if you're a real estate agent and you're listening to this, we don't have that much control over that. Okay. But what you do have control is share of market value in people's minds. Okay. And so how do you control that? You educate them. You put out videos, you put out mailers that give value, not, I'm the greatest. They like people bragging about how much days on market. Like that's ridiculous these days. But like, what can you tell them so that you can stay front in mind? Which I think the biggest thing you can do is send a video with a market report, which is this. What is this? None of the difference is mine is not going to consumers mostly. It's going to go to real estate agents. So I would tell any agent that's looking at this is, get with people like Chris, talk, look at his data and be able to have a meaningful conversation to your audience, not just in person, but over email, over Facebook, over, YouTube, all of that stuff, so that you can create market share in the minds of the people so that when that happens, when they decide to list, you're that person. You have the knowledge and the solutions for them, okay? And if you don't start doing that now, okay, then when the inventory does go up, you're not going to be front and center, because you know who is? Our people, other people that are doing this. Chris Jacobs, right? People that are out there educating the market. They're going to go back to the people that have kept them abreast every single time.
Absolutely.
Well, Chris, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. It's always great to have you on here. And
absolutely. We should do these a little more frequently.
I would love, let's do it quarterly, man. I'd love to.
I'm fine with that. Let's do that. Set one up for three months from now, and we'll do a quarterly update with you guys.
Absolutely, dude. And so housing market on Facebook, you're on the board of directors.
Housing report.
Housing report on Facebook.
Housing report.
You have are you doing Instagram, Facebook, any of that stuff?
Man, Facebook's about the only thing I do. I'm not that cool. I do need to increase my presence, but I have not.
Well, get with me.
Get comfortable.
I'd love to get you set up on a YouTube, man.
Yeah, I need to.
You'd be great at it. Yeah.
Awesome.
So you're
Ryan.
one of the most best performing video podcasts that we do. So I'd be happy to help you out with that.
I appreciate it, Ryan.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot.